Today, on Running to Him,
we must be careful to avoid misapplying the rules we find in Leviticus. Today we will read Leviticus chapters 13 through 15 and concentrate on chapter 15, verses 31 through 33. Leviticus 15:31 through 33 says, "Thus you shall keep the sons of Israel separated from their uncleanness, so that they will not die in their uncleanness by defiling my tabernacle that is among them. This is the law for the one with a discharge, and for the man who has seminal discharge, so that he is unclean by it, and for the woman who is ill because of menstrual impurity, and for the one who has a discharge, whether a male or female, a man who lies with an unclean woman." Today's reading in Leviticus addresses the idea of impurity in the form of skin diseases, sometimes translated as leprosy, and other forms of impurity. The word translated leprosy in the New American Standard Bible means a skin disease. And as a side note, the NIV and Holman Christian Standard Bible translate the Hebrew as skin disease. The term leprosy, also known as Hansen's disease, meaning a more destructive skin disease, wasn't precisely described until the Middle Ages when it affected Europe. The term leprosy is also used concerning buildings in Leviticus 14:35. So we must be careful when we're reading these types of scriptures that we don't place meanings on the words that have no relevance to the purpose they had back then. So think of the term leprosy in the Old Testament as a matter of skin disease. It could be just as simple as a pimple, eczema, or complex disease such as Hansen's disease or mold in buildings. Physical hygiene is essential because without it, we subject ourselves to various diseases which can be prevented. During Moses' day and even up to the 1800s, there was not a significant amount of what we would call physical hygiene practiced. The magazine National Geographic writes, "Surgeons began regularly scrubbing up in the 1870s, but the importance of everyday hand washing did not become a universal truth until more than a century later. It wasn't until the 1980s that hand hygiene was officially incorporated into the American healthcare with the first national hand hygiene guidelines." This was published in March 6, 2020, under the title, "Wash Your Hands Was Once a Controversial Medical Advice." So the idea of cleanliness separated from the Hebrews from the rest of the world. Now, we can quickly see how these types of rules might become so embedded in society that the reason for the law was forgotten and replaced by a ceremonial cleanliness relating to one's relationship with God. This is why we see the Pharisees so upset with Jesus and the disciples for not ceremonially washing his hands. See Mark 7:3. Such a practice is common in our culture. When we greet people, we tend to shake hands. This is commonly thought to have come about to show that each person did not have a weapon in their hand. Today, people might think you are rude if you don't shake their hands when you meet them. So our call-out passage focuses on a seminal discharge or a woman's menstrual period. Again, there's a misconception as to the physical, clinical illness of either discharge. God was not saying through Moses that menstruation or sexual discharge was dirty. The principle he was bringing was that the two types of discharges were tied to the initial command of God to be fruitful and multiply. This is why the sexual act is so important and so sacred in marriage. This is God's first commandment to Adam and Eve. And to cheapen the physical act only to pleasure abuses God and his desire for the closeness of a husband and a wife. God calls us to be holy as he is holy, restricting our activities so that we can control them rather than them controlling us, brings us closer to that goal. Today's emphasis on the idea that sex is an overwhelming desire and must be fulfilled in any way possible causes us to break from the concept of holiness. But We cannot think of holiness as Pharisaical holiness. Our holiness is designed to shape us into more Christ-likeness. Pharisaical purity was intended to bring a person to a place of pride for their ability to follow the rules.
Thank you for listening. We pray that today's devotion was meaningful to you. We would love to hear from you. You can use either Facebook or YouTube to like, subscribe, share, and tell others about us. If you would like to contact us, you can reach me at phineasjacobus@runningtohim.net.